Poker. It's the game of kings, outlaws, and legends. A battlefield where fortunes are won, respect is earned, and egos are shattered. To the outsider, it's all glamour. But what if I told you that behind the bright lights and million-dollar pots lies a world far darker than anyone imagines? A world where winning comes at a cost, where careers crumble under the weight of crushing losses, and where even the best players risk losing far more than just their chips. This is the uncensored truth about poker, the side the cameras don't show, the side where addiction, isolation, violence, and despair run deep. What really happens in poker? Poker is seductive. To the outsider, it looks like a fast track to riches. You've heard the stories. A nobody walks into a casino with pocket change and walks out a millionaire. It's a game that promises freedom, independence, and the thrill of winning big. But what poker doesn't promise, and what every professional knows too well, is stability. At its heart, poker is a game of volatility, and no matter how skilled you are, the swings are brutal. Take Erick Lindgren. At the height of his career, he was the embodiment of poker success. Multiple World Poker Tour titles, over $10 million in tournament earnings, and sponsorship deals with major poker brands. But behind the scenes, Lindgren was struggling. By 2012, his debts had spiraled out of control. He owed millions to creditors and even close friends. The lifestyle he built, expensive buy-ins, high-stakes cash games, and a mounting gambling addiction was unsustainable. Filing for bankruptcy and seeking rehab, Lindgren's fall from grace exposed the harsh reality of poker's financial swings. Then there's Archie Karras, whose name is legendary in poker lore. In 1992, Karras walked into Las Vegas with just $50. Over the next 3 years, he turned it into an astonishing $40 million, beating some of the world's best players along the way. But his run ended as dramatically as it began. In just a few months, Karras lost every dollar of his fortune in high-stakes games. His story is a powerful reminder that no matter how high you climb, poker always has the potential to pull you back down. Tournament players face a unique kind of financial pressure. Imagine spending thousands on travel, hotel stays, and buy-ins for a shot at life-changing payouts. But in most tournaments, only the top 15-20% of players make the money, while everyone else leaves empty-handed. Consistently reaching those top spots is a daunting challenge. Even a small downturn in results can leave players in a financial hole that's hard to climb out of. The cost of chasing the dream often outweighs the rewards for all but the most successful players. In recent years, social media has added a new layer to poker's financial volatility. Platforms like Twitch and YouTube have given players a way to document their journeys, bringing the brutal swings of the game into public view. Spraggy, popular Twitch streamer, has built a reputation for his honesty, sharing both his successes and his most devastating losses with his audience. Fans have watched him endure marathon sessions where variance works against him, and his willingness to show the raw emotions of poker resonates deeply. Similarly, Rampage Poker has taken YouTube by storm with his candid approach to documenting his poker career. His channel doesn't just highlight his wins, it dives into the hands he regrets, the bankrolls he's blown, and the lessons he's learned. By pulling back the curtain, players like Spraggy and Rampage are redefining how poker is presented, giving audiences an unfiltered look at the grind behind the glamour. But transparency doesn't soften the financial blow. For players like Mike Matusow, the swings are just part of the game. A 4-time WSOP bracelet winner, Matusow once admitted to losing $750,000 in a single day. That's the kind of loss that could break even the most seasoned player. And yet, stories like his are all too common in the poker world. The most dangerous part of poker's financial volatility isn't just the losses, it's what those losses inspire. Chasing losses can lead to catastrophic decisions, with players risking more in desperate attempts to recover what's gone. This cycle of lose, chase, and lose again has destroyed countless bankrolls and, in some cases, entire careers. In poker, volatility isn't just a part of the game, it is the game. It's what makes the highs so thrilling and the lows so devastating. And while the dream of turning pocket change into a fortune draws countless players to the felt, the reality is that most will lose far more than they ever win. Poker isn't just a test of skill, it's a test of mental fortitude. For professionals, the game's demands go far beyond the table. It's a job where you can do everything right, make perfect reads, execute flawless plays, and still lose. That's the brutal reality of variance, and it's something every poker player has to come to terms with. The psychological strain of poker can wear down even the strongest minds. Greg Merson, a World Series of Poker main event champion, is one of the few players to speak openly about how the game affected his mental health. Merson struggled with substance abuse during his career, using drugs to cope with the relentless highs and lows of poker. In interviews, he's described the game as a mental marathon, a never-ending challenge that pushes players to their breaking points. Even after winning millions, Merson felt the weight of the grind, eventually seeking help to regain control of his life. For some players, the mental toll manifests as more than just burnout. Shane Schlager, a respected online and live poker pro, has been candid about his battle with addiction. For 15 years, he struggled with crack cocaine use, a habit he says was exacerbated by the pressures of professional poker. The story of Schlager underscores the significant impact that game-related stress can have on personal struggles, creating a challenging cycle that is often hard to navigate. But it's not just addiction that poker players face. The isolation of the lifestyle can be equally challenging. Traveling from city to city, spending hours at the tables, and rarely seeing friends or family takes a toll on relationships and mental well-being. Many players describe feeling disconnected from the world outside of poker, a sense of loneliness that builds over time. Even the act of losing, something every player experiences, takes on a unique weight in poker. A bad beat or a poorly timed bluff doesn't just cost money, it chips away at confidence and self-belief. For players who rely on poker as their primary source of income, the stakes feel even higher. One extended downswing can lead to spiraling doubt, with players questioning their skills, their decisions, and even their future in the game. And while poker can be exhilarating, the adrenaline that comes with big wins often fades quickly, leaving behind a sense of emptiness. It's a phenomenon many players have talked about, how even the highest highs don't last. After the rush of a tournament victory or a massive cash game score, there's always another hand to play, another challenge to face. The grind never stops. But for many, the challenges remain deeply personal. The pressure to keep playing, to keep chasing that next win, often comes at the expense of mental health. And while the ability to stay emotionally resilient is seen as a hallmark of a great player, it's a skill that not everyone can master. For those who can't, the cost of the game may be far greater than the chips in the pot. Poker has always had an image problem. To many outside the game, it's not seen as a legitimate profession. Instead, it's viewed as gambling, a risky, unstable pursuit reserved for those with a high tolerance for uncertainty. For professional players, this societal perception adds another layer of challenge, one that can affect their relationships, financial opportunities, and sense of identity. Eugene Kachalov, a tournament pro with millions in winnings, has spoken openly about the judgment he's faced. Despite his undeniable success, Kachalov has spent much of his career defending his choice to play poker for a living. Friends and family outside the poker world often struggle to see the skill and dedication required to succeed. To them, poker isn't a career, it's a gamble. That perception can create a rift, leaving players feeling misunderstood or dismissed. The stigma also extends to financial institutions. Many poker players find it nearly impossible to secure loans or mortgages, regardless of how much they've earned. Niall Farrell, another highly successful tournament player, has described the difficulties of convincing banks to treat poker income as legitimate. Even with six-figure wins, players are often viewed as high-risk borrowers, with unpredictable earnings that make traditional financial milestones harder to achieve. But the stigma isn't just external. Within the poker world itself, players often feel pressure to project confidence and success, even when they're struggling. Social media and live streams have created a culture where big wins are celebrated while losses are downplayed. This creates a disconnect between the reality of poker's volatility and the polished image many players feel compelled to present. It's not unusual for a player to show up at a table, acting as though they're on top of the world, when in reality, they're battling crushing debt or personal challenges behind the scenes. For many professionals, isolation becomes a defining feature of the lifestyle. The nature of poker, hours spent at tables, constant travel, and a singular focus on winning leaves little room for traditional social connections. Players often spend weeks or months away from family and friends, moving from one tournament to the next, or grinding online in solitude. The result is a sense of loneliness that builds over time, compounded by the unique stresses of the game. Even within the poker community, isolation can be a challenge. While there's camaraderie among players, competition is ever present. Friendships often take a back seat to strategy, as even casual conversations at the table can reveal information that could be used against you. It's a world where trust is limited, and relationships are often transactional. What's changing, however, is the way players address these challenges. Social media has become a powerful tool for breaking down barriers and fostering connection. Players like Lex Veldhuis and Maria Ho use their platforms not just to share their wins, but to talk about the personal struggles that come with the game. This openness has created a growing community of fans and players who can relate to these experiences, bridging the gap between the poker world and the broader public. Despite these shifts, the stigma and isolation of poker remain significant hurdles. For those pursuing the game professionally, these challenges are often as difficult to navigate as the game itself. When you think of poker, violence probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind. It's a game of skill, strategy, and psychology, hardly the type of environment you'd associate with physical danger. But the truth is, poker's high stakes and intense emotions have led to some shocking and even deadly incidents. One of the most infamous examples is the story of Jonathan Duhamel, a World Series of Poker champion. In 2011, Duhamel was attacked in his own home in a terrifying robbery orchestrated by his ex-girlfriend. He was beaten, tied up, and forced to open his safe, where the assailants stole over $100,000 in cash, a Rolex watch, and his WSOP bracelet. The robbery was calculated and brutal, leaving Duhamel not only physically injured, but emotionally scarred. While it's true that many players will never experience such drastic scenarios, his tale highlights the fact that poker stardom can turn you into a target. Violence at the poker table isn't unheard of either. In Atlantic City, an argument over something as trivial as a seat escalated into a deadly confrontation. After a dispute, one player followed another outside and stabbed him in the neck, leading to his death. The motive? The attacker felt he had been unfairly denied a place at the table. Incidents like this might seem rare, but they highlight how quickly emotions can boil over in high-pressure poker environments. Then there's the chilling story of a private poker game in Florida that ended in tragedy. A man convinced that other players were cheating him left the game only to return hours later with a gun. He shot and killed 3 of the players before fleeing the scene. Under the influence of paranoia, anger, or the despair of losing, his actions reveal how poker can sometimes bring out the most undesirable aspects of human behavior. Even outside of extreme cases, poker players face risks that aren't always obvious. In some parts of the world, underground games are popular due to the lack of regulated poker rooms. While these games offer high stakes and big payouts, they also come with significant dangers. Without the oversight of a casino or official organization, disputes over money, cheating accusations, and even robberies are far more likely. For those who play in these environments, the risk of violence is part of the gamble. But it's not just other players who pose a threat. The pressure and long hours of professional poker can lead to physical strain. Players often sit for 10 to 12 hours at a stretch, barely moving, with poor posture and little regard for their health. Over time, this sedentary lifestyle can lead to chronic back pain, weight gain, and other health issues. Combine that with the stress of high-stakes decisions, and it's no surprise that burnout is common among pros. The reality is, poker isn't always the safe, glamorous game it's made out to be. The stakes aren't just measured in chips or cash, they can involve your personal safety and well-being. While these dangers might not be the norm, they're a reminder that poker's risks extend far beyond the felt. The poker industry markets itself as a place where dreams come true, where anyone with the right skills and determination can make it big. But beneath the surface, the industry itself can feel as unforgiving as the game it revolves around. For professional players, navigating the business side of poker can be just as challenging as surviving at the tables. Take the case of online poker. In its early days, platforms like PokerStars and Full Tilt Poker were havens for professionals. Generous rakeback deals and loyalty rewards allowed skilled players to build consistent income streams. But as poker grew in popularity, the focus began to shift. Sites like PokerStars introduced changes that favored recreational players, higher rake fees, reduced rewards, and a strong emphasis on attracting casual participants. These moves alienated many pros who had relied on the platform for years. years. For players who had built their careers grinding online, the rug was suddenly pulled out from under them. Live poker isn't much better. Casinos and poker rooms are businesses, and their priority is profit. While professional players bring prestige and attention, they aren't necessarily the most profitable customers. Recreational players, the ones who spend freely at the tables, slot machines, and bars, are the real targets. Professionals, by contrast, are often seen as a drain, taking money out of the ecosystem without putting much back in. It's why some poker rooms go out of their way to attract amateurs, offering promotions and incentives that actively discourage pros from dominating the games. This tension creates a strange dynamic. Professionals are often left feeling unwelcome in the very spaces they helped popularize. For example, casinos have been known to implement policies that restrict access to high-stakes games or impose limits designed to deter skilled players. While these measures might make sense from a business perspective, they can leave professionals feeling marginalized and unsupported. Beyond the poker rooms, sponsorship opportunities for pros have also dwindled. In the early 2000s, being a sponsored player was a badge of honor, a sign that you'd made it. Companies like Full Tilt Poker and Poker Stars had sprawling rosters of ambassadors, promoting the game and building their brands. But as the industry evolved, those sponsorships dried up. Today, only the most marketable players, those with strong social media followings or crossover appeal, stand a chance of securing deals. For the vast majority, the days of lucrative sponsorships are a distant memory. And then there's the issue of regulation, or lack thereof. In many regions, poker operates in a legal gray area, leaving players vulnerable to inconsistent rules and enforcement. Online platforms in particular have faced scandals involving cheating, bots, and other forms of foul play. While some sites have made strides in improving security, the damage to player trust has been significant. Perhaps the most frustrating aspect for players is the lack of recourse. When platforms make decisions that negatively impact their user base, whether it's banning accounts, changing policies, or increasing rake, there's little players can do. The industry holds all the cards, and for those who rely on poker for their livelihood, adapting to these changes becomes a matter of survival. The ruthlessness of the poker industry isn't just a reflection of its business practices, it mirrors the game itself. Poker rewards the bold, the strategic, and the resilient, but for those who can't keep up with its relentless pace, both at the tables and behind the scenes, the game can leave them behind. Poker is a career with no guarantees. Unlike traditional professions, there's no pension plan, no employer benefits, and no structured path for advancement. For most players, the reality is stark. Even if you make it to the top, staying there is a completely different challenge. The volatility of poker makes it a short-term career for many. Winning a major tournament or building a substantial bankroll can be life-changing. But poker is a game of swings. The same streaks that catapult players to success can just as easily take it all away. Without consistent results or financial discipline, even the best players can find themselves struggling to stay afloat. Consider the World Series of Poker Main Event Champions, a title that represents the pinnacle of poker success. Many of these players won millions, but only a handful managed to parlay that success into sustainable careers. For others, the winnings were gone within a few years, spent on buy-ins, lifestyle upgrades, or poorly managed bankrolls. Fame in poker is fleeting, and the pressure to maintain that success can lead to burnout. That's why diversification has become a key strategy for longevity. Take Liv Bory, for example. A European Poker Tour champion and one of the most recognizable faces in the game, Bory knew the grind of poker wouldn't last forever. She branched out into public speaking, science communication, and investments, carving out a new career while maintaining her connection to the game. Similarly, Maria Konnikova used poker as a stepping stone rather than a destination. A journalist and author by trade, Konnikova dove into poker as a research project, learning the game from scratch and eventually competing at the highest levels. Her journey not only boosted her writing career, but also showcased poker's strategic depth to a broader audience. Even legends of the game have found it necessary to look beyond poker. Daniel Negreanu, one of the most successful and enduring figures in the industry, has spoken about the importance of balancing poker with other pursuits. His involvement in content creation, sponsorships, and business ventures has helped him remain relevant even as the game evolves. But for every player who diversifies, there are many who don't or can't. The grind of poker leaves little time for outside interests, and the skills developed at the table don't always translate to traditional careers. For players who rely solely on poker for income, income, the stakes are even higher. A prolonged downswing or a shift in the industry can leave them with few options and no safety net. For many, the question isn't whether they'll leave poker, but when. Even players who manage to build successful careers often find themselves asking, what's next? The allure of poker fades over time, replaced by the reality of its demands. As the industry continues to evolve, more players are recognizing the need for a backup plan, whether that's transitioning to coaching, launching a business, or pursuing a completely different path. Poker is a game of discipline, but even the most disciplined players can find themselves caught in the game's darker undercurrents. Addiction, both to the game itself and the lifestyle surrounding it, is an ever-present risk for those who pursue poker professionally. Combined with the physical toll of long hours, late nights, and relentless stress, poker's demands often leave players struggling with their health. Perhaps no story highlights the devastating impact of addiction in poker more than that of Stu Ungar. Widely regarded as one of the most talented players in history, Ungar was a child prodigy who transitioned from gin rummy to poker with unparalleled success. He won 3 World Series of Poker main event titles, a record few have even approached, but behind his brilliance lay a crippling cocaine addiction that ultimately led to his downfall. Despite earning millions, Ungar died penniless in a Las Vegas motel room at the age of 45. His tragic story remains a sobering reminder that even the greatest talents are not immune to the pressures of the game. Addiction in poker isn't always about drugs. For many players, the game itself becomes the addiction. The thrill of a big win, the adrenaline of an all-in moment, and the desire to chase losses create a cycle that's hard to break. Shane Schlager, a respected poker pro, has been candid about his struggles with both substance abuse and the addictive nature of poker. For Schlager, the late nights, intense swings, and constant grind of the game exacerbated his personal challenges. His openness has helped shine a light on an issue that many in the poker world hesitate to discuss. Beyond addiction, poker takes a physical toll that's often underestimated. The sedentary nature of the game, combined with marathon sessions that can last 10 to 12 hours or more, creates a host of health problems. Chronic back pain, weight gain, and even cardiovascular issues are common among long-term players. Sitting at a table under bright lights, staring at screens or cards, and dealing with high-pressure decisions are physically draining. Over time, this lifestyle wears down even the most resilient players. Sleep deprivation is another significant factor. Poker doesn't follow a 9-to-5 schedule. Tournaments can run late into the night, and cash games often peak during the early hours of the morning. This erratic schedule leads to inconsistent sleep patterns, which have long-term effects on both mental and physical health. For players competing in multiple time zones or juggling online and live events, the impact can be even more pronounced. Mental health is also a critical concern. The emotional highs and lows of poker can lead to anxiety, depression, and burnout. The constant pressure to perform, coupled with the isolating nature of the profession, creates an environment where these issues thrive. Despite these challenges, conversations around addiction and health in poker are becoming more common. Players are increasingly using social media and streaming platforms to share their experiences, breaking down the stigma around these topics. This transparency has created a growing awareness within the poker community, encouraging players to seek balance and support. But the road isn't easy. For many, the culture of poker, one that glorifies the grind and celebrates endurance, makes it hard to step back and prioritize health. Addiction and health risks are not just byproducts of poker, they're deeply ingrained in its lifestyle, and for those who can't find a way to cope, the cost can be devastating. Poker is often romanticized as the ultimate test of skill, nerve, and strategy. A game where anyone can sit down, play their cards right, and walk away a winner. But behind that romantic image lies a far more complicated reality. The financial swings are unforgiving, the mental strain is relentless, and the lifestyle comes with sacrifices that most people can't imagine. For those who choose poker as a career, the rewards can be extraordinary, but so are the risks. Throughout this journey, we've seen how poker players grapple with the volatility of the game, navigating crushing losses and unpredictable earnings. For some, like Erick Lindgren and Archie Karras, the game has taken everything, leaving them to rebuild their lives from scratch. Others, like Spraggy and Rampage Poker, have turned their struggles into lessons for the broader poker community, sharing the unfiltered highs and lows with millions of viewers. But it's not just about money. Poker is a mental battlefield, testing players' emotional resilience in ways few other professions can. From Greg Merson's fight to overcome addiction to Shane Schleger's candid admissions about his struggles, the stories of poker players reveal a side of the game that's often hidden behind the glamour. And then there's the stigma, the isolation, and the very real physical dangers, from violent altercations to the toll of long hours and unhealthy habits. The poker industry itself can be just as ruthless as the game. Online platforms have shifted focus away from professionals, live poker rooms prioritize recreational players, and the opportunities for sponsorship and long-term stability have dwindled. For many players, the grind is a constant fight to stay relevant and competitive in an industry that often feels stacked against them. And yet, poker continues to captivate. Why? Because it's not just a game, it's a reflection of life itself. The risks, the rewards, the uncertainty of it all. Every hand is a gamble, every decision a test of courage and skill. It's that mix of possibility and peril that keeps players coming back even when the odds seem insurmountable. For those who dream of becoming professional players, the question isn't just whether they have the skill to succeed, it's whether they're willing to face the challenges that come with the dream, the relentless grind, the emotional toll, the sacrifices. Are they worth the reward? For some, the answer is yes. For others, the cost is simply too high. In our next video, we'll take a closer look at the poker pros who lost it all.